Welcome to the UI experience. Welcome to the UI experience.
Good afternoon, urban intellectuals, those out there in radio listening land who have chosen to spend a portion of their afternoon basically listening to us run off at the mouth about things we think are important. And I want to welcome everybody to Real Talk with Jalal, otherwise known as the UI Daily Show. This is Daily Show number, I was talking about that yesterday. I lost track already. I think it's 32 or something like that. For today, this Thursday, October the 2nd. It's my Friday, too. Anyway, as I said, I just want to welcome everybody, and I appreciate the fact that you guys support our show. And before I go any further, along with supporting our show, I would hope that we would support urbanintellectuals.com in the same manner. You can go to urbanintellectuals.com/members and become a paid member of Urban Intellectuals for the low rate of $2 a month, $24 for a whole year. Or you can go to urbanintellectuals.com/donate if you just want to donate to the cause. Give to your heart's content. Give millions. We're with it. We'll take it. Anyway, as usual, I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Patrick Irvine. I got to say it like that, Irvine. And Terry Banks, TB, the host of UI After Dark. And Patrick is the host of, don't even get me started. It's a bunch of shows. But I really thank these brothers for being here because I thought I was actually going to be late today. I had to take my son to the doctor's office. And because I had to do that, I really kind of doubted whether or not I was going to make it back by 1 o'clock. But I sent out that cry for help, and these brothers was right here when I got here. Now, topic number one, ladies and gentlemen, in radio land. A lot has been written. A lot has been spoken on. There has been arguments both for as well as against whether or not Steve Harvey was correct in inviting and interviewing Paula Deen on his show in her long-running rehabilitation tour that she seems to be, partaking in America, trying to rebuild her cooking empire. And, just like there are going to be things that I say on this particular show that people are not going to agree with, just like there's going to be things that I believe in my heart to be true that other people are going to look at me and say, man, that's some bullshit. I don't knock that brother for what he believes. For those of you who know his backstory, he was taken in by white folks when he was early in his career, and they basically showed him love. And, don't want to take away from that because there are some good white people out there in this world. There are millions and millions and millions and millions. I would like to believe that there are more good white people out there in this world than there are bad white people out there in this world. It's just that they don't run shit. The bad people run it. Anyway, so I don't want to, throw stones at that brother because that's what he decided to do with his show. Whether or not, he's being controlled by the media empire, yeah, well, that's debatable. Who cares? The fact of the matter, he did something that he thought was right in his heart. I don't want to talk about that. What I want to talk about instead is the next logical step to that particular situation. Now, let's go back. I know, TB, I know you have some specific info on this particular situation, but I am going to say that sometime in the 1980s, I do believe, I'm going all the way back, one of the most popular sportscasters in the United States, this was prior to Summerall and Madden, this Jimmy the Greek was the man. Come from an old gambling background, he was a prognosticator. If he tells you that the Bears is going to win, 9 times out of 10, the Bears was going to win. Now, who knew that James Snyder, otherwise known as Jimmy the Greek, had a background in genetics? Who knew that he was well versed in how slave masters back in the day took the big, strong black buck and he bred it with the strong black woman, and they made the strong athlete. And that's why you see athletes of African American persuasion dominating sports. Who knew that he knew all that? Anyway, his basic career just basically went up in smoke. I think he's dead. If he's not dead, he's so far away from mainstream television that if he's not dead, nobody knows where he is. And I mean, this dude he was the Stephen A. Smith of his time. That's how big he was, because this was prior to ESPN or whatever. He did the rehabilitation tour. He was on TV shaking Jesse Jackson's hand, because that was back when Jesse Jackson was the go-to guy to apologize for saying stupid shit about black folks. You had to go shake hands with Jesse. Move forward a couple of decades, you had Don Imus, very popular radio personality, so popular that they actually filmed him talking on the radio, which to me that's the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life. But anyway, he decided that he was going to make a joke, and he called the entire Rutgers basketball team a bunch of nappy head hoes. Some of these women are studying to be lawyers. Some of these girls are studying to be doctors. I mean, these are extremely intelligent girls, because Rutgers is not the type of university. It's not Little Sisters of the Poor. It's not, the blah, blah, blah community college. This is Rutgers University. They have standards. So all of these girls were incredibly smart, incredibly successful young ladies, and he called them a bunch of nappy head hoes. Took them off the air for a week. Then we can move to Michael Richards. Got mad at a couple of brothers heckling him at one of his comedy shows, and he goes off on a nigger tirade and calls us a bunch of niggas and whatever. Next thing you know, he's on TV talking about he's suffering from depression and alcoholism, and he's crying, and he wants to be rehabilitated, so now he's on a rehabilitation tour. Then we move to the guest of our brother Steve Harvey, young Miss Paula Deen. Paula Deen was sued in court for a hostile workplace and worker discrimination by someone who actually witnessed her use the N-word. She called somebody a nigger. She also had ideas. I don't know if she ever did it, but she had ideas about doing a plantation-style wedding, where all of the black folks was going to basically dress up as slaves and servants, and she thought that this was going to be like the greatest thing in the world. Now, the only reason why this came out is because she had to sit down in a courtroom under oath and basically testify that, I said nigga, this was like 30 years ago, and I haven't said it since, which is what they always say. Okay, cool. What Justin Bieber said the same thing. Years ago, I'm not like that anymore. But anyway, so basically, her career went up in smoke. Boom, it's over with for the most part. But she's slowly working her way back into it. But my question to our panel, to our esteemed panel, is, can you ever get back? We are the most forgiving people on the planet. We have forgave people for stuff that people in other countries have been fighting for 1,000 years because of. But we forgave people. We just that type of people. We got open hearts and large hearts, and we think that the power of redemption is very, very powerful in today's world. My question, can a white person who puts their foot in their mouth to that magnitude, not your boss, not the guy who lives down the street from you, who might have messed up or whatever, nationally recognized people, can they ever get back? Can they be redeemed within our community? Terry, I'm going to hit you first.
All right. It just goes to each black person's personal like or dislike for the white person that used the slur. First thing I think is that there's a double standard among us black folks, that we believe it's okay and we're justified in calling them out of their name, that we can use slurs when we address them, and we somehow should be acceptable in doing so because they enslaved us. But when they do it to us, oh my God, they're racist, and then they I'm never going to support them again, and I'm never going to forgive them. So I don't appreciate the double standard that we have, where even on this show and other shows, people call them people out of their names every day. But as soon as they say it, they're a member of the Ku Klux Klan, and they probably was hanging folks and then burning bodies, and you don't know anything about these people to that extent. If you say something publicly, it's out there, period. And so everybody has the right then to judge what type of person you are. Paula Deen, Jimmy the Greek, Michael, all these other guys, they stuck their foot in their mouths. And I like the fact that you went back to Jimmy the Greek, because he actually was the first on a national level to come out and say something stupid. Well, actually, Howard Cosell made a little knuckleheaded comment on Monday Night Football one time in the 1970s, where a running back had scored a touchdown, and he said, "Man, look at that little monkey run." But he,
like that. Yeah, I remember
but
that.
he, he, everybody knows Howard Cosell. He absolutely idolized Muhammad Ali, and nobody even believes for 1 minute that he was a racist man. But he was saying it in the sense that this guy is running fast as a monkey. This so happened to be a little black running back that he addressed it to. But Jimmy the Greek's comment sounded so much of a slur. It was a slur because he acted as if he was there, as if he was himself a slave master. And his comment was that all blacks were bred from slavery to be who they are, to be athletic, to be muscular, to be able to work all day and not get tired. So to come out publicly and say all blacks, you see the word all, not a couple, but all blacks were bred from slavery. You definitely jeopardized and pretty much ruined your career. And he is dead, by the way. So he put his foot in his mouth. And at that time, there was no ESPN, there was no national media as it is now. There was the NFL on CBS, and they were the major player in the game. CBS had all of the sport; they had basketball and football. And he said that publicly on the NFL on CBS. And yes, he lost his career, and it never recovered. He never got back on air again. If you look at today and what Paula Deen did, what Paula Deen said was not said publicly. It wasn't. She wasn't on a national television show. She didn't come out and make that say. It was done in public and kind of in a private setting where some public ears were listening. And then somebody, of course, brought it out and said, listen to what she said. Everybody on this earth has a right to be forgiven for things that they've done wrong. I think anybody that plays God and you just don't want to forgive, I really would question you yourself as to what you got going on in your closet. If we opened up your closet and really examined your life from your beginning to where you are now, I'm quite sure we'd find some things that are pretty embarrassing, some things that may have been illegal or done undercover in the dark that you don't want to come to the light. So I think everybody, of whatever race you are, you have a right to make amends for making a mistake or even saying something stupid. I have used the slur against white people many times before, but in my heart, I'd like to believe I am not a racist man. I don't want, to go hang white people and just start killing white people. But I have used that word before. So what should happen? Should I never, ever be forgiven? See, so she has a right to try to make amends just as anybody else would. Steve Harvey's forum is his forum. He is backed by a white media company. He himself has some white folks that took him in and showed him, hey, we can help you make it. We can help you get on your feet. And so for that, he feels obligated to say, hey, I'm not the type of man that's going to, only focus on my race and just say everything about my race is good, but anybody else, you're not. So that's his show. He could use that forum for anything he wants. Whether people judge him as being, coon, sellout or not, that's their own personal preference. I don't label him as that. I label him as a product of how he came up. If white people took me in when black folks rejected me, shouldn't I then kind of want to, say, hey, I think some white people are beautiful people, and if they make mistakes, they deserve to be forgiven. And that's the angle that he is bringing it from. As for me, I don't see anything wrong with it because he has that right. Paula Deen has the right to make amends. And anybody, again, who wants to just be on this pro-black, I hate all white people, anytime they say one thing wrong, I mean, that's their choice. I just wouldn't be on that bandwagon.
P.I. Brother makes some good points. What do you think?
I think the anger, the first to answer your question, can people come back? Of course they can come back. Forgiveness is more for the people that are doing the forgiving than for the person that gets forgiven. That's one of those common platitudes that holds a lot of truth and weight to it. So that's how I feel about that. Of course they can come back. And as to Harvey having her on his show, that's fine. I don't think anybody has any real beef with Steve Harvey opening up the platform that he's allowed to host to Paula Deen for her comeback efforts. I don't think, me personally, I don't have a problem with that at all. I recognize even if he didn't want to, and I don't think it's a case of him not wanting to, but even if he didn't want to, he works for ABC, he has a primetime slot, he's doing what he's doing. Sometimes you got to do what the boss says to keep the job. So, in that, I don't think anybody is righteous for saying Steve Harvey shouldn't have allowed her on his show at all. And, we can definitely understand when white people help you out. I had some white people help me out when I was down on my luck. So, and I won't say black people rejected me, but those white people stepped in when I needed somebody to help. And so, even in that, I have a difficult time when people say all white people are evil. And me personally, when I talk about racism and white supremacy, I'm talking about it from a cultural standpoint. My biggest beef with most white people is the apathy. But that's my same beef I have with most black people, is the apathy towards the system and the refusal to do anything to change it. Of course, there are evil white people out there, and there are good white people out there. But as a whole, most people are apathetic, and that's my biggest beef. Now, when it comes to this Steve Harvey situation, though, I think for me, the thorn in my side, again, is not that he had her on the show. And even with Paula Deen, is for me anyways, it's deeper than her saying nigga in private. Like, if you read the transcripts and if you listen to her talk before she got into trouble, and if you just watch the things she was doing, listen to all the things she was saying and everything, to me it speaks to a mindset. I don't think she admitted the things that she did or was planning because she was under oath. I think she admitted it because she honestly didn't have a problem with it. I think she admitted it because she thought that everybody would be okay with it, because she assumed that everybody thought the same way she did, because she assumed maybe that black people wouldn't raise hell about it. And in that, she would be fair for thinking that way, because in black people, especially when somebody's in the food business and they making food we like, we typically give them a lot of leeway to do whatever they want. So, but I think for me it just speaks to a mindset of acceptance of a sort of racial worldview. To me the comments were very much like, to me the scenario, it structured her mindset similar to how we see the mindset of Donald Sterling, which he made private comments in a private situation, and that was all put on blast, but it spoke to a cultural acceptance of a certain worldview that says black people are this and white people are that, and white people are up here and black people are down there. That's what I got out of the Paula Deen situation. So even in that, when I look at the Steve Harvey aspect, and I know you didn't want to get into this, but for me anyways, I have to clarify so that people don't think that it's because she was on his show. I'm looking at the fact that he reached out to her and told her to teach fatherless young black boys that he is mentoring. He's going to fly them down to her, not her come up to his ranch. He's going to fly them to her place in Georgia so that she can teach them how to cook. And I'm just having all kinds of Why her? Why a white woman with a known history of racism to teach fatherless black boys that you're supposed to be mentoring? You couldn't find a black woman. You couldn't find a non-racist white man. You couldn't find a black man, even better. These boys are fatherless. So to me, that's where that's where all of the negative feelings come from about what Steve Harvey is doing. It's not about her being on the show. It's about him going outside of the show and partnering with her. And I would have that beef with him even if it wasn't Paula Deen. Why a white woman? That's the furthest thing from a black man that you can get. So that's my beef, and I would like to think that that's the majority of people's beef, is that why her and the mentoring program, not necessarily why is she on your show. She can be on your show. But as to black people in this, black people condemning all white people, I don't necessarily agree with that. I definitely don't agree that we should not forgive her because of what she said. I don't think she should be allowed to have the same level of status that she had without going through a penance process. But to say we should never forgive her, that's a stretch for me. I'm forgiving her because I don't want her to have that kind of control over my emotions. So I don't want her to be able to incense me just by looking at her on TV. So in that sense, I got to forgive her to let that go.
For sure. And I like what you said though about expending emotional energy for nothing. This is my take on the whole situation. I didn't give a damn about what Paula Deen said because basically I didn't give a damn about Paula Deen in the first place. You see what I'm saying? I don't have her cookbooks, and if I saw one of her recipes 9 times out of 10, I'm trying to stay away from high blood pressure, so 9 times out of 10, I wouldn't eat what she made anyway. You see what I'm saying? Like you said, we as a people have a tendency of granting racist white people way too much, power over how our day goes. Let's put it like that. We can all go to the court. We can be hooping. We can have one of those good days, when you're flowing and your jumper's falling and you're getting you a good sweat, you got your good exercise in, you're feeling good, you got paid today, whatever. Whatever the case may be, you feel good today. And one white person, you can hear one white person on the radio that you don't even know, can't even see their face, say the word nigga, and your whole day is just destroyed. I mean, you can't think. You on Facebook, you on Twitter, you on the phone, you talking to people. Hey, how could that person do this, that, this, and the other? And like there's no racist people in America. And I always hearken back to the fact that our problem, black people, is not the Ku Klux Klan. Our problem is not the Aryan Brotherhood or white supremacists or them fools that go out in the wood and slam dance with each other in the middle of nowhere with bald heads. Our problem is not them. Let me tell you why. Because I can look at them and say, that dude got on a pointy white robe. I think he's racist. I can look at this guy with these combat boots on and this, swastika on his forehead, tattooed on his forehead, and I can look at him and I can say, I think he's a racist. But that guy who interviewed me for that job last week, who gave me every reason in the world thinking that this was a really good interview and that I probably will get this job. We shook hands. We talked about other things other than I got a good feel from him. He got a good feel from me. And as soon as I walked out the door, I said, I'm not hiring that nigga. And he threw it in the trash. That's who I'm worried about. I'm worried about that white man has Hispanic man, or in some cases that reverse racist black man that's sitting on the bench in that courtroom with that black robe on. I'm worried about him saying to himself, after he says all the good legal things that he's supposed to say in the courtroom, thinking to himself, I'm going to put this nigga in the penitentiary for the rest of his life. That way he ain't going to never have to be a worry to nobody else in the neighborhood. That's who I worry about. We expend too much time and too much energy pointing at the wall. We know the wall there. We know the wall is white. We know the wall is hard. We know the wall keeps the elements out of the room. The wall is there. It's going to be there. Why are you still pointing at it? You see what I'm saying? And like you said, it's that apathy. It's that, well, she said some racist shit. Oh, well, so what? And how many black folks who say, hey, look, let's get together and let's go down to the community center and we're going to have to come up with this program where I got some ideas where we could keep these youngsters busy during the summer. We can give them something to do. We could give them some training that they need. I got it lined up with some brothers that know carpentry or that know how to paint or know electricity. Can we get together? Oh, man, that's Saturday, bro. That's my only off day, man. That's what worries me more than a Paula Deen or a Jimmy the Greek or whatever, And to speak to your point about I'm like you, all those thousands and thousands of 5-star level black chefs out there that are in loving relationships, as far as we know from the outside looking on, because even the Neelys is getting a divorce, but that's a whole other story. For all them those black chefs out there, both male and female, I will say that. I will differ with you on that. Even females, all those black chefs, you couldn't find one of them to come down. What's so special about Paula Deen's butter-eating ass that she got to be the one to teach your kids how to cook? You see what I'm saying? And, yeah, culinary arts is a great thing. It teaches them, discipline. It teaches them math. It teaches them engineering. It teaches them all kinds of things that you would never think was actually connected to the culinary arts. Not knocking that. But like you said, why Paula Deen out of all the people in the world? To me, this smacks out, okay, you reached out for her, but I bet you she was quick to call you back and say, okay, yeah, I'll do it. Because this is another one of those, to me, in my opinion, this is another one of those rehabilitation tours. This is just another stop on the rehabilitation tour, because now if you can be forgiven by Steve Harvey, who never really had an axe to grind against you in the first place, if you can be forgiven by him, just like anybody that brings Jesse in or brings Al in to basically give them a good face with black folks, if you can be forgiven by them and they are the voice of those people who you have wronged, then you can get back with white folks. Not the white folks that don't really care, not the middle-class white folks that don't buy your stuff, but with people who actually pay your bills, with sponsors. Paula Deen had a line of cookware in Walmart that basically truckloads of it just ended up in the landfill. A whole lot of people lost a whole lot of money because of, like you said, a private conversation. But not so private in the sense where she was actually getting, she actually was getting sued for racial discrimination. There's a whole lot about Paula Deen that people don't know. They know it because of this little blurb that happened, but there have been many, Google it, there have been many reports that this wasn't just, one-time thing, that she used nigga the way I use cracker, that. And although I know how Terry feels about that, he say you shouldn't basically use those kind of words because it makes people think that you're talking about them all. If that's how you feel, if you feel like I'm talking about you, then you need to examine yourself in the mirror. So I really don't give a damn. I will say I will agree with that with Steve Harvey. If that's how you feel, I really don't give a damn. My show is not for you. So, in any event, so I look at it like I said, she's trying to rehabilitate herself and rehabilitate her career using us, and he's making that possible. Knowingly or unknowingly, he's making that possible. That's what my beef is with him.
I want to let me just say something while you both were saying something. I just thought about if we did this in reverse, would white people be outraged? If I were on a show and I said something, I used a slur against white people, and it went public, and they took me off the air and that kind of thing, and then a white person befriended me and put me on TV and gave me a chance to redeem myself, I wonder would white people be equally as outraged? The other thing is I wonder if I were to be given a chance to mentor fatherless white girls, would white people be equally as outraged? You know, would they be as pissed off? And I ask that question to myself because I just think we sometimes just as a race, we just feel entitled to hate them because they used the word against us or because they were negative, they said something negative about us. And what I like to do is think about the situation from all sides first and not let my feelings and my emotions just make the decision for me. I like to think about what it is that's actually going on first before I make a choice as to whether I dislike that person. If Paula Deen is a racist, what could you do to change that? Nothing. If that's the way she's going to be, she will be that way until she dies. Same thing with a lot of us. I grew up black and will always be black. I know a lot of black folks that clearly are racist. They do not like white people. They use slurs against them every time they talk about them. But then they go and work with them and they put on the front and they act like they're so cool with them. But behind closed doors, they're some of the most racist people on earth. But nobody black will come out and be equally as mad at the black person for being a racist. So it's just a double standard a lot of times when we see it only from our blackness. And we don't take into account that, you know, everybody who makes that mistake that's white, sometimes they really are apologetic. Sometimes they really do recognize that I need to change the way I think, just as some of us need to change the way we think. So maybe this woman is truly trying to say, yeah, I've been a knuckleheaded woman for all these years, raised in the South, raised country, raised under the Confederate flag and all that it stands for. But at this stage of the game, realizing that I'm on the other side of death now and death is closing in on me, maybe this woman just might be sincere about trying to change. And if Steve Harvey is the facilitator of that, let those who are going to call him a sellout call him a sellout. It ain't going to take no money out of his pocket if a black person rants about not watching his show or not following him anymore. That man's still going to make money. So I think the bigger picture for me as I look at the situation is, what am I as my own black person? What am I doing to try to see if I can bridge the gap between the black and the white hatred? That's what my question would be to me. Terry, what are you actually doing? Instead of just talking against Steve Harvey and against Paula Deen, what are you actually doing to facilitate and bridging this gap between black and white hatred? And I would think if all of us made the attempt to try to focus on that, instead of just already ready to throw the darts at people, you know, maybe we might start to have an impact in black-white relations.
I agree with that. 96%. Now, that's a good point.
But that's okay, bro, because we can have. Everyone says that's what I like about it. We can have, you know, discussions, and we all have our points of view based on our life's experiences. It's just like some of us, you know, believe in God, and some of us don't. I'm not going to suddenly hate people and want people to die who don't believe in God because I do. You know, we are who we are, you know, based on our own life's experiences. So you stay with what it is that you believe, because we are not going to know whether we were right until we die. So I'm not going to isolate myself and separate myself from people who don't think exactly the way I do. And that's the case. You might as well put yourself in a box and just be in life by yourself. It's good to have people who don't always see it your way. But just based on what my genetics is about and what I've experienced in my lifetime on this earth, I have had some white people in my life who treated me, talked to me, dealt with me, helped me, came through for me, were friends with me, far at a level that it was far greater than what people of my own race did. You see, so I'm not going to always just be the one that's just always ready to throw the darts and, you know, line the white folks up against the wall and shoot them. Yeah, you got Klansmen, you got skinheads, you got Adolf Hitler lovers, you got Benito Mussolini type lovers, you got David Koresh lovers, you got white folks that truly have evil in their nature. There's nothing we can do about that. But my focus is on the ones who don't. And how can we come together and try to have an impact?
Pretty much.
Can I get some words in, or is this just, has the format changed totally?
Yes. No. Identify yourself, sir. I am David in the house. What you got for us, bro? Did he leave?
People with different opinions or whatever, different views around you, but if something's wrong, they're fucking wrong. That's that simple. I remember watching Apollo when I was, early teen, and what always stood out to me during the amateur night is you could get a mediocre-ass white person on stage singing, and the crowd would go fucking nuts over this person, no matter who it was or how they sound. Horrible most of the time. Or you could sing a gospel song. If you sing a gospel song or you're a white person singing mediocrely, you're not going to be booed. In fact, you're going to win. That tells you our mindset. Forget this idea of forgiveness. It's not that we're forgiving people. We are cowardly people. Now, maybe Paula Deen didn't do anything that was worth, all this hoopla. That's a whole other story. But we're talking about the idea of forgiveness from black people. Okay? First of all, part of that is Christian training, the idea of turning the other cheek that was put in us. Okay? The other is, again, most of the men who and women, the strong, the ones who were not having that shit, what happened to them? They were assassinated, exiled, jailed. So you got a generation or two of people who are so willing to they might not be in that category, but I'm just speaking to this idea of black people and forgiveness. Okay, Steve Harvey had some white people do something good for him. I have. Patrick explained he had. Terry explained that he had. Okay, what does that have to do with the group, the people as a group, and how they have benefited and have colonized the whole goddamn world? Say that black people can be racist, and that some people that are racist. First of all, black people are reacting to what has happened to them. Black people could be prejudiced but never racist, because I can't affect a whole race of people, a whole other race of people in their lives. That's what racism is. It's a power. It's not, that's how I feel. I feel a certain way, even though I have had a white man, a Jewish man help me establish my business, this and the third. I speak this way about white people, and he will not talk against it because he knows I'm coming from a place of experience, and that my people are coming from a situation where something has happened that ain't never been repaired. Okay? That's the other thing, because when you forgive someone, you expect them not to continue to do things. Okay? But when you forgive and they continue to do things, now you're just a fucking fool. What I believe black people desire more than anything, to see someone of statue like Steve Harvey, or whatever. Okay? You want to see them at that level coalesce or unite so that it could kind of spill down to the rest of us. All right? That's why people are hopping on Steve Harvey, because it's like, come on, man, what the hell are you doing with this lady on? Right after you have Mike Brown, Mama, you're going to have this lady on about forgiveness and all this? And then you're going to fly the kids to her. She's not going to come and make any effort? I mean, we see through this bullshit. He's doing what he's told. Okay? But again, whether this idea of Paula Deen, whether she's done something so bad to not be forgiven, whatever. The idea of forgiveness from black people, and whether or not we could be prejudiced or racist, or go to the mindset of who we are and how we became that way. And then you'll understand this quote unquote idea of forgiveness.
Okay. Those are good points, though. And I know there's a lot of people out there who actually do feel that way. Feel exactly like I Am David does. And I know I myself feel that way to a certain extent. Maybe not all the way 100% totally aligned with everything that he said as far as black people is concerned. Me, I don't give a damn. As long as what you're doing is not specifically, identifiably causing harm to me or black people in general, I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn about the neighborhood full of white people that don't want black people to live there. I don't care. You see what I'm saying? Because I'm not going to try and force my way into it. But that's me. And one of the great things, one of the wonderful things about Real Talk is you can see you got a far extreme like a David. You have a more conservative extreme like a TB. You got me that's, I can roll with the punches depending on how good the argument is. I can say, yeah, I'm with that, which some people might call wishy-washy or flip-floppy, whatever you want to call it, but I'm open to new ideas. And you got Patrick. Patrick is the same way. None of us here are saying that we need to get some guns and some flamethrowers and basically rid this world of white folks. That's not what we're saying. Because like we said, the vast majority of them, I would be willing to believe that the vast 90% or above of white people are actually good people. It's just the problem is that remaining 10% or so are the ones who are in positions of power. And of those 90% that are good white people, 50% of those 90% are apathetic. They don't care because it doesn't affect them.
Hey, can I real quick?
No, yes.
Real quick. I know we got to move in, but I just wanted to answer because I was thinking about what Terry said about would white people forgive black people.
Oh, and, yeah, I meant to say that.
I can honestly say, and I agree with some of the points he made, most definitely, but I can honestly say I don't think they would. I mean, when you think back in terms of sports, when you think back to Dennis Rodman saying that Larry Bird was just the average white boy that everybody loved, and then you think about Isaiah Thomas when he co-signed it, that was the start of his fall from grace, and white people never forgave him for simply saying Larry Bird was an average player, but because he was white, he was a superstar. And then when you look at Michael Vick, still, with all of the positive work he's tried to do, he didn't even do anything to white people, and they wouldn't even let him come into the state of North Carolina. But then when you look at the Paula Deen situation, and they actually have a group called Black People for Paula that are having a rally to say, we forgive you, Paula. That, to me, like, we don't see white people doing those things to forgive black people. That's almost exclusively one-sided. And, again, like I said, I think black people should let Paula go just for the simple fact that I don't think she should be allowed to cause us to be so upset just by seeing a picture of her face or just by hearing her voice. Like, we shouldn't be roused to riot by somebody saying Paula's name. And to do that, you have to forgive her and kind of, okay, whatever. You said what you said. I don't like you, but I'm not going to keep beating you up about it because we got bigger fish to fry. And I think that's where we have to get. So when I say forgiveness, that's what I mean. But I just wanted to make that point. I know we got to move in, and I know we can go all day on this show about this topic, but I know we got to move on. So I just wanted to say that.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. That's one of those topics where it can be came at from so many different angles that we can spend a whole show just basically talking about each individual little small angle. I would like to do a show about black people being racist, because there's a lot of different views on whether or not that's true. Can we be racist or can we be just prejudiced? But moving along, topic number 2, which is going to be a little bit quicker today because we're running low on time. We're down to our last 15 minutes or so. Myself and UI Jane have been talking all morning. I think she posted this at something like 7 o'clock this morning, about whether or not the United States government is going to use the scare from Ebola being in the United States as an excuse to detain and or imprison large numbers of people, using the fear of pandemic as being an excuse to be able to do these things and basically suspend these people's constitutional rights. And I kind of want to deal with that because I'm not one to really fully invest in conspiracy theories. And I don't even like really calling them conspiracy theories because in a way that's kind of a negative connotation type phrase. Because when you say conspiracy theory, you start thinking, oh man, this dude wear tin hats. He put aluminum foil on his head, and his whole house is covered with aluminum foil to keep people from reading his thoughts. You start thinking crazy people when you say conspiracy theories. What I like to call them is just basically alternative ways of looking at situations. And that alternative way that people look at that and say, it's coming. They're building, look at this. They're building these death camps, and they're building this, and they're building that. And, yeah, that's a private prison that they couldn't feel. Or, that was supposed to be a warehouse that Amazon was supposed to open, but because of the economy, that ended up being an empty building that has nothing to do. You see the videos of tanks and armored personnel carriers on the highway. Well, how do you think they get them from the people who take these Ford trucks and retrofit these Ford trucks? How do you think they get them from their place of manufacture to their ultimate dispersal point, be it a port where they're sending them overseas or to an army base? That's how they get them there. They don't make them there. They have to ship them there. So, and not to say that some of those things are not true. That factory across the street from me, that might be the death chamber. Not saying it is, not saying it isn't. What I'm saying is that there's two ways of looking at it. Now, as far as the executive order about communicable diseases is concerned, that's been around for, I'm quite sure that, Terry, you can give me a quick Google search. When did Typhoid Mary hit New York City? What was that, 1901?
Yeah, it was in the early 1900s.
That has been, this is not new. The one that he actually expanded was actually passed and codified into executive order by Bush during SARS. This has always been around. And I don't like to see us get so worked up about something that's always been there and that if it happens, it happens. But I just can't see them doing that just to get you in, a internment camp, if that's what you want to call it. And I just kind of want to talk about that for a second, if anybody had any opinions or any knowledge about that. Anybody? Everybody?
Well, I mean, it's going around that, that there's a patent on this particular strain of Ebola, and there's a patent on the cure. So if you want to get to the bottom of it, you go find out who owns the patents. Now, I myself can be considered a conspiracy theorist, and anyone who want to look down upon someone who have what you call, quote-unquote, alternative approaches or alternative thinking, I would just simply call them a coincidence theorist, because everything is a fucking coincidence. To me, I'm pretty sure there was some Africans on the coast of on motherland who was trying to warn everyone else that, hey, these people aren't here to be friendly with us. It was a conspiracy that got us here. It was a conspiracy that got JFK assassinated. It's a conspiracy that got Malcolm X and Martin Luther King assassinated. These started out as conspiracies, and so you have all of this, these movies and TV shows coming out, been out, World War Z, Walking Dead, all this shit. And if you go back to, the 50s and 60s when James Bond was popular, how many movies did he do or did they do that eventually became real life only a decade or two later, whether you're talking about Goldmember or anything else? The fact is, there's something going on. They don't have hundreds of thousands of coffins just stacked up in Georgia for no damn reason. They don't just have all these FEMA camps popping up for no reason. They don't have, I'm all over the country. I travel. I've been to these bases where they're shipping this stuff out, and they end up in the hands of municipal law enforcement. They're not just being shipped overseas. So I could see a scenario where, one, they got black folks as the face of beheading people now. We're associated with ISIS. You got black folks beating their women and children. You got, black men. You have, you have black men in the face of all of this evil, tactics. Now we're in the face of Ebola. It's no wonder why I got accosted last night, the way I did, because they talk to the subconscious of the nation. They talk to your subconscious, and they make you think a certain way. That's not conspiracy. This is what they studied and learned to do back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. This is what Nuremberg trial was about, all the experiments they were doing on people and populations as a whole. This is what Tuskegee was about. That happened. So, I would just caution anyone who's seeing all these strange events going on. I would caution you against, your first inclination, which is, this is nothing. I can't foresee them doing something like that. Yeah? I couldn't foresee them, just watching black men die of syphilis for 30 or 40 years. And I couldn't foresee that every time Jack Johnson knocked somebody the fuck out, that they wouldn't have had a lynching that night, because now their feelings hurt. This world this world's a trip. You better wake up to it. You're caught with your pants down.
Coincidence theorist. I can't even steal it because I've been informed that that's already in the UI dictionary. Patrick, what you think?
What do I think about?
Okay, I'm sorry. What do you think about the original subject? Do you think that the president adding certain infectious diseases to the quarantine list, do you think that is a harbinger of something larger, or do you think that is just, the usual way that they do things when something of the gravity of an Ebola making it to the United States gets here?
Well, when you look at what he added and its impact on Ebola, it really has no impact on Ebola whatsoever. When he starts talking about, I think from what I read of it, what I can remember of reading of the amendment to the executive order, he basically added severe respiratory issues that could lead to pneumonia, or that could include or lead to pneumonia, this, that, and the third, and blah, blah, blah. So it could open the door for some things. It definitely could be a sign of some things to come. I try to keep my mind open to all aspects and all possibilities, because for me, when I just look at the executive order as it is, it wasn't needed. Like, Ebola was already included in the initial executive order. I just don't see where it has any added benefit. Just looking at the original executive order, looking at what the amendment says, and looking at what Ebola actually does, some of the symptoms, I really don't see where it has any real added benefit for having any sort of added included protections for the Ebola thing that we're all looking at right now. So in that sense, it definitely fits all the criteria of being a harbinger of something else. So, I leave it at that. For me, it's like what was the point?
I look at it as a what's the point type situation for another reason as well. When has a government ever needed an excuse to do what they want to do? You see what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that any of this is not true. Everything that David basically said is probably true. I will say that. But what I will also say is don't get caught up in the subterfuge. Don't get caught up in the sleight of hand. Because moves like what was made, like you said, Patrick, has nothing to do with Ebola, because Ebola is not one of those type diseases. It's not a respiratory disease. You don't pass it through the air that we know of. I think that's bullshit. I think you can catch it by breathing on somebody. But I mean, what happens if somebody sneezes in your face that's got Ebola? Do you catch it then? Anyway, so my thought has always been that is directed toward those wishy-washy, maybe type white folks that might stand up and might raise their hand and say, wait a minute, what are you doing? That's what that's directed toward, to make them feel like this is something that needs to be done. It's not for us. They've never had a problem.
You're absolutely right on that, Kevin.
Never had.
You're absolutely right. It's all because there are, once Obama got elected, the militia groups in this country either tripled or quadrupled once his inauguration occurred. Okay, there are a lot of men you've seen at Bundy Ranch who could care less about your FBI letters on your jacket or whatever other letters you got. You come over in our territory, they're going to snipe your ass. And you see the FBI agents back the fuck off. That's who they're talking to. They're talking to those people who would do something and stand up and will have the resources to stand up against the. That's who they're talking to. And they're telling them, hey, keep an eye on these black guys. They're doing all this crazy shit. Now they're bringing Ebola in here. That's what they're telling them. They're talking to them. So, and I'm not. I'll call it like I see it, and I don't care how I sound. I feel that with every fiber of my being, if we just look at and pay attention to what's being marketed to the masses, it's not. I'm not reaching to connect dots here. Dots are too easily connected.
Okay. TB, you've been kind of quiet. You got anything you want to add to this?
No, I just heard what you guys had to say. I got a slightly different take on it, but we're just up against the clock, so I'll just keep my opinions quiet for right now.
No, we'll get it out of you one day. I'm just gonna hit you out the blue one day. Just start the show. Say, TB. I'll address it like when I do a show. I'll address it, on a show that I'm moderating, and because I see a lot of things in a different light. Of course you do. Of course you do. That's because you was in the Army and not the Marine Corps. But that's a whole other story. Yeah, anyway. we can go toe to toe on that one. But like you said, that's something else. And with that, we're gonna kind of wind this one down. We got 2 minutes left. I was gonna do a lightning round, but we ran kind of over on the first subject with Steve Harvey. So I'm gonna end this show with my positive 1 minute, 30 seconds, whatever. When it comes to your relationships with white people in this country, we must absolutely, positively must be able to vet people the same way that they vet us. And to those people who come to us with that open hand of charity, with that open hand of assistance, with those open arms of love, you have to, absolutely have to see beyond the color of their skin. And that goes both ways, of course, but I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to us. White people have done a lot of things wrong to us over the centuries. They've done a lot of things wrong to literally millions of people over the centuries, even some of their own that weren't quite as white or weren't white enough or was a different type of white. We can't let our anger at circumstance make us mistake individuals for that circumstance. Somebody trying to kill you, do what you got to do. But if a person is coming to you with love, then you absolutely must extend that love back to them. Keep your guard up, but extend that love back to them. And with that, we going to end. It's exactly 2 o'clock. Man, I hit it on the head. And with that, I want to thank TB for his conservative views on everything that we talked about. I want to thank I Am David for the somewhat progressive views that he shared with us. And I want to thank P.I. for being in the middle and basically refereeing. I thank everybody for joining us. I implore everybody, start visiting urbanintellectuals.com. Even if you don't donate, even if you don't become a member, start visiting UI, because we're letting you know now UI Radio is migrating away from Facebook. So if you want to have any type of news about what we're doing and what we're going to be doing in the future, you're going to have to come to the page, because we getting ready to get a white man back his thing. You see what I'm saying? But for those who do recognize that although the revolution won't be televised, it must be funded, urbanintellectuals.com/members, $24 a year. You could become a member of this group, or urbanintellectuals.com/donate to donate to your heart's content. Whatever you choose, if you give $1, that's fine. We'll take $1. We'd rather have 100, but we'll take $1. I'll take a nickel. Show that you're part of the cause. And with that, until tomorrow, the next version of Real Talk for real people with real problems with Jalal Tariq, I bid you adieu.